ISIS in Iraq. The terrorist group ISIS is strengthening its grip on northern Iraq, and it's doing so by fear, intimidation, and death. In fact, during this jihadist blitz, the death toll has been staggering. June, more than 2,400 Iraqis died in terrorist violence. This according to the United Nations. Of those, more than 1,500 were civilians, nearly 300 were police officers, and more than 800 were members of the Iraqi security force. Meantime, ISIS has taken control of Syrian and Jordanian border towns, and they are celebrating the ISIS declaration of Islamic Caliphate.
The group, also known as ISIL, claims universal authority over areas it controls in Syria and Iraq on Sunday, and that its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was now caliph, or leader, of the Muslim world. These images, obtained by Reuters from social media, purport to be from Monday, though they cannot be independently verified. In another part of the country, other images from social media showed Syrian forces continuing to bomb a group of insurgents. The footage emerges as some Islamist groups fighting in the country have rejected the announcement of an Islamic caliphate. 9 groups, including fighters and religious scholars, have called on Muslims to avoid siding with the Islamic State.
Now, the Obama administration has done little to help Iraq. Obama is sending another 200 troops in Iraq to protect Americans and the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. That brings the total of U.S. troops in Iraq to about 800. But is taking Baghdad even part of the goal of ISIS? And are they done, or is more to come? Joining me now, investigative journalist and Daily Ledger contributor Kimberly DeBoer. Kimberly, let's look at what happened this week. It was significant, I think, both on a symbolic note, but also practically speaking. The ISIS terrorists went to the border between Iraq and Syria, and they basically obliterated a bunch of berms there, opened it up.
Yes, they did. You know, we're looking at a situation here where now you see this incredibly radical jihadi group that's able to move weapons and fighters freely across the Syrian as well as the Jordanian borders.
Okay, so if you look at the map of what they're trying to do, this caliphate, they've taken most of northern Iraq and into Syria, where they were with the so-called freedom fighters, the rebels, whatever you want to call them. The map does stretch beyond that. It stretches into Lebanon. And also, is Jordan in play here?
Yeah, Jordan's absolutely in play. In fact, this last week, we actually signed on the dotted line, and Jordan was able to pick up $1 billion to help them fight and actually just sustain their country. They've had an influx of about 1.5 million refugees from Iraq, Syria, and Palestine as well, all flowing into their country seeking refuge. And we're talking about a fairly small state in a country that definitely does not really have the police state that the other Middle Eastern countries do.
So you think that the ISIS terrorists have their eyeballs on parts of Jordan, the whole thing?
No, they want all of it. I don't think they've made any bones about it. I think they want all of Jordan. And looking back at the Iraq situation, I know we talk about Baghdad, and while right now the Baghdad has about 80% of the population is Shiite, it makes it a lot more difficult for ISIL to actually get their teeth into Baghdad. But if they're going to complete their caliphate, they will have to take Baghdad.
Okay, let's look at Syria now. They took it upon themselves to go in and bomb positions of ISIS in northern Iraq, and the Iraqi government said, hey, great, as long as you take out these terrorists. What's going on in Syria right now with these people?
Well, as you said here, Syria's been in a 3+ year civil war, and not only have they been fighting the Syria Free, rebels, the actual, ISIS group has been kind of dormant, lying in the northern regions of Syria, and the, President Assad has actually had to fight them, and he's had troubles fighting with them. He knows how brutal they are, but you're looking at another situation where they stay on it. They keep fighting. You pound the whack-a-mole thing. You get rid of a few of them, and 3 others pop up. So they've proven to be quite adept at fighting and keeping the territory that they've had so far.
And they've handed over their chemical weapons.
Yes, Syria this week handed over the last of its chemical weapons, and that was a deal that was brokered by Russia itself to kind of alleviate the situation. And now, without the chemical weapons, I think the United States should be looking at the fact what kind of national security threat really is Syria? Should we really be getting involved? Should we really be giving the rebels $500 million to train moderate? The government here, our country says we're going to be training moderate. Didn't really work out that well with the moderate Iranians for Iran-Contra, but we seem to think in this situation we can find moderates to fight. And it usually ends badly, and most people out there just don't see that this is going to end any differently.
Well, those pictures that we're seeing, the video of them doing some 360s in armored personnel carriers, those are probably American vehicles that were confiscated by these people when the Iraqi military just walked away or maybe were killed. So they confiscated these vehicles, but they also have weapons that were given to them through the United States. And so this is U.S. Material that they're using to fight their caliphate.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also another statistic that came out this week. The Congressional Research Service did a report on the Iraq situation. They said in the northern part of Iraq, 60 of the 230 or so combat battalions were missing. They couldn't find them, and that we had to presume that the 60 groups that went missing, all of their military, all of their arsenal went away as well, and is now under the control of ISIS. Now we're looking at Humvees that are over in Syria now. They've completely moved all of their stuff over the border because I think they believe that it's a little more difficult for the U.S. to go in and fight them if they're in Syria. So that's a lot of speculation as to why they moved back to Syria, but they have a lot of American arsenal now, and they got some of it indirectly from us, and some of it they were successful in fighting in Iraq and confiscating.
Boy, it's just amazing to me how often the Obama administration seems to be on the wrong side of history, and it's current history.
Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Coming up next, a man coming to a theater near you as the Daily Ledger continues.